Welcome to Fair Go, your favourite podcast about building a better tomorrow. A podcast by the people, for the people, where we share small business stories from the business owners themselves. When you encounter unfair obstacles that are too hard to overcome on your own, remember, you don't have to do it alone. Together we can rebuild our great Southland and make Australia proud again. Join us today at fairbusinessaustralia.com.au. Welcome to Fair Go, a podcast by the people, for the people. I have with me today a small business owner. We're very excited, actually. He is from Melbourne. Well, actually not Melbourne, Victoria. So, Steve, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on for us today.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm from Sale, so east coast of Victoria.
Yeah, right. And tell us a little bit more about your business, and then we'll get into how COVID has affected you over the last 21 months.
Okay, so I moved from Sydney to Sale in 2019, early 2019, April, and the gym came up for sale at the end of that year, and so I bought the gym in January 2020. I had really big plans for it. You know, I'd actually vowed never to buy a gym again after owning multiple gyms in Sydney, and I thought, yeah, okay, look, this looks good. I think I can really enjoy the community side of things again, because I love the community side of the gym, and I can really make this a goer. We had some big plans for it, and then COVID hit in March. And so in Victoria, it's been a big challenge for the last couple of years.
Yeah, we've all been watching it. People that are not in Victoria have been watching all of the alternative media that's coming out of there, which is, I tend to think, more boots on the ground than the mainstream media. Tell me, has it actually been as bad for Victorians as what we're seeing on alternative media channels?
Well, it depends on where you're at. I honestly think in ways it's been worse, because I know, like, sometimes you're only getting those snapshots, and like obviously with Rukshan and that sort of stuff, you saw the rubber bullets being shot at people in protests and stuff like that. And while they're the extreme parts of it, you guys you don't really see all the other stuff that's going on in the community. You know, just community and the fatigue and the stress. And like for me, for example, 2020 was tough. We had 2 big lockdowns. But 2021 for me was actually much, much harder, because as a gym owner, the Victorian government saw my industry as the opposite of what I consider it to be. Like, we're at the forefront of keeping people fit and healthy. And particularly for me, I'm very health and holistic minded. So we do all the nutrition, the sunshine. We want to make sure our members are very holistically minded, not just about exercise, but everything. You know, so we are like the prebiotic, if that would make sense, for what people need to make sure their immune systems and their health is going to fight away any of this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But then the government called us one of the most risky industries. And so we were always the first to be closed and the last to be opened. And 2021, they were all snap lockdowns. We didn't get a warning. We'd get like a couple of days notice, or not even 12 hours notice. I think some of our lockdowns happened. And we were always told like it would be 5 or 7 days. And like, I think we had 6 of them in 2021, these mini lockdowns. And for a business that runs on like a membership system, it's very, very hard to get any sort of growth, because if people don't know how long they're going to be having to do or stop and start their memberships and that sort of stuff, it makes it really, really hard to get any sort of momentum going.
Yeah.
Whereas with 2020, I started an online side of things, and that grew pretty well, and that sort of kept 2020 going. And a lot of people sort of went into that because it suited them, and because of the big lockdowns, it was easy to keep that going.
Yeah.
But with 2021, people wanted to start. They wanted to come back. They wanted that social side of things that you don't quite get. And so 2021 was really, really tough.
So tell me, these snap lockdowns and, oh my gosh, gyms are so risky, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure that at least during some of those lockdowns, they were still running brothels.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know how you can get much more risky than that. But did they ever actually present you with solid scientific evidence as to why your sector was so risky?
All of this came up in 2020. This was a really, really big part for our industry. We had Fitness Australia and Vic Active and that sort of stuff representing us. We had Tony Doherty down here talking very vocally and publicly about this sort of stuff. And then there was little old me that actually by the end, when they kept telling us this, and they opened up every other industry except gyms. And so I turned around at the end, this was at the end, and I turned around and said, look, I'm opening. I can't do this anymore. I can't do it. And it became very public at RVMNE, at my gym. It became it went around the world with Rebel News and that sort of stuff that I was opening up against the lockdowns. And with that media attention, they literally flipped the narrative. And that very weekend, they opened all the gyms again.
Really?
And up until that point, they'd been saying that we were like a high risk environment, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And like what that sort of really made me realize is just how much the media has as an impact to the government's actions down here.
100%.
And when you start to develop something that is giving them bad attention, they don't want to see that. And so all of a sudden their health advice just seemed to change. But it continued on into next year. We were still like it didn't actually carry through, but we did, we did seem to open a bit more frequently with hospitality.
Yes.
Rather than the extension, because we were normally a week before them being closed and then a week or two after them being open during 2020.
Right.
And until I took that stand.
Right.
And then 2021, there was a little bit of leeway given, but they never ever showed any actual advice. They used an example from a private hotel issue as their sole information about how gyms were dangerous, when the worldwide information didn't support any of that.
And how did that make you feel?
It was really, really hard. Because like I said, I'm just a small gym owner. I've been in the industry though for about 20 years. I've been living and breathing this for 20 years now. And so for me to be told by people that don't have the experience and don't have the foot on the ground, when I've helped so many people fight so many of their personal health and general like mental, physical, emotional health like issues over the years, just to be told that like we weren't a benefit.
Yes.
I physically see and have experienced that benefit over and over and over again, like through my career. And then when Vic Active and the bodies that actually have a contact with the government were presenting the information to them from everything that was going on around the world that showed that gyms were one of the safest industries and that there was no spread actually linked to gyms. And if it was, in comparison to the other industries, we were minuscule.
Right.
You know, gyms are very high health standards, like hygiene. There's always been sanitary stations and cleaning done in gyms.
Yes.
The people in gyms have that health mindset, so they're always extra aware. You know, so once we implemented some social distancing measures to go a bit above and beyond that sort of stuff, and I've still got the boxes down now to keep people like in their spaces, socially distanced, not sharing equipment. There are so many things that gyms can do to minimize risk.
Yes.
And then you've also got the fact that the people who come to the gyms are probably the lowest risk in general.
Right.
You know what I mean? When you talk about COVID affecting obese people, people with comorbidities, the people who are coming to the gyms are doing absolutely everything possible to be the opposite end of that spectrum.
Exactly.
So it cut me.
100% it would have. And And let's go back to even just to mental health. You know, locking people away in their own homes without sunlight, you know, without the vitamin D, without access to community, I mean, that is really what a gym does. Is you look in the mirror, you can see that your work is like giving a result to your body. You look better, you feel better, you watch other people who are looking better and feeling better, and you kind of have that camaraderie there. So taking that away, and people that are gym junkies that love to go to the gym, like gym is life.
Yeah.
That is their lifeline. That is their community. That is their support network. It's the same for, religious people saying that they can't gather at a mosque or at a church or a synagogue. It's just unconscionable. So, and you were never given any information apart from that one anecdotal piece where, well, something happened in a hotel, and so we think this. And then as soon as you apply some uncomfortable media pressure, all of a sudden they do a flip and everything is fine now. But that didn't last. And so what happened to you now that you've also put a target on your back because you've put yourself out there as a spokesperson for the gym community? What has happened to you since making yourself a little bit more visible in the community?
Look, I run a CrossFit gym, and so we're basically a sporting entity, so a lot of people come there for that social camaraderie and to be training for this, like the sport of CrossFit, like together, and so whilst we also have a very high number of military people and medical and healthcare professionals that come into the gym. So regardless of what I had, like whether I wanted to just not close during the lockdowns and that sort of stuff, a lot of my members wouldn't have been able to come and actually participate, and it would have given a bad picture to some of my members if I had like thwarted constantly, and
right,
because the community is my main focus with the gym.
Right.
Most of the lockdowns, I did actually lock down again. And then just provided online support and lent out equipment to my gym members and that sort of stuff to keep them training during those lockdowns. There was one though where I decided, no, enough is enough, and I'm not going to close because they said it was going to be a snap 7-day lockdown. And I said, look, if it's just going to be 7 days, I'm just going to stay open. And
well, why is it 7 days when it's a 14-day quarantine anyway? What's the point of doing half of a quarantine period? Make your mind up. Is it 7 days or is it 14 days? Yeah. And how can you just snap lockdown? Because everyone's already touched each other anyway. If it originated here, then everyone's already infected anyway. So make everyone stay at home for 14 days.
That was my thinking with it. I said, this one just doesn't make any sense. And so I'm not going to actually follow this one. I'm just going to keep running. And we did obviously have a number of members that just didn't come because of the conditions that I did mention before, because it affected their work.
Sure.
But then I did get dobbed in to the police, and they did make a show, and like they came at the RV Yemeni when I did open. Right. They didn't find me on that day, and they were just there to watch and make sure there was no troublemakers and that sort of stuff. And they had come in a few times just to check that I was doing the right things previously. And they did come in that time, and they said, look, we know what you're doing. We know that you're considered a sport, and we can sort of see what you're trying to get at here with the athletes, because there were exemptions for athletes and that sort of stuff. But most of your general members don't fit into that elite athlete basket that is in the exemption. So look, we are going to ask you to close. And I did actually close then, and it did end up extending on. That ended up being one of our longer lockdowns for last year. Yeah.
Sigh. The world's gone mad. And so you were dobbed in, obviously, by a member of the community.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, and that's the issue. That's what happened back in, communist Russia, is you didn't actually have to worry about the government, because the government couldn't be everywhere, but they had eyes everywhere. And so it was your neighbour or your family member that you actually had to really worry about. And COVID has been so incredibly divisive for that thing now. I mean, up in Queensland, we've just entered our massive COVID issues on the 17th of December, 1 week before Christmas. Merry Christmas, everybody. Thank you, Anastasia. Yeah. But so the police came and they said, look, understand what you're doing, Steve, can appreciate that, but sorry, mate, you're just going to have to lock down. And so you did. It was a very, very long lockdown that time. So what happened when the health officers actually started coming to pay you a visit? Because that's why you and I are actually having a conversation today, because someone has recommended that you come and have a conversation with Fair Business Australia because of the situation that you're in right now with your business?
Okay, so again, this was one of those things that just didn't make any sense to me. Victoria was pushing up to those high vaccinations standards and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I was looking at what was happening in New South Wales, and they were saying once we hit these numbers, we're actually going to get rid of all these mandates and that sort of stuff. And it didn't make sense, but that made more sense than the states that were trying to get to these numbers. Like I think Victoria got to 92% of over 12s, and then they created these mandates. And then they put these mandates onto the population when, in my thinking, if you've got that much of the population vaccinated, why are we then mandating it now? Why wouldn't you have done it before that to get to that point? And so then looking at what was required, how I understood it, I actually didn't think I needed to, because I'm a sport, like CrossFit's a sport. How I understood it, I didn't need to have it, because in the exemptions, it actually says if you're running a community sport, then you don't actually have to have any of these things. As a boss, as an owner, I don't have to have it. I don't have to make my staff have it. And I don't have to check anyone's things. So I didn't get any of the vaccination thing because that was my interpretation of it. And the COVID officers came in, and look, I know a lot of people have, and I've seen a lot of videos with some really bad experiences with both the police and the COVID officers. And I actually can't say that they were rude. I don't know if it's because of how I look physically. I'm a bit intimidating, but like the police, I don't see why they'd be intimidated by me. They've got a job to do, and they were really, really polite every time I've had interactions with them. And the COVID officers were the same. They came in, they asked to look at my COVID safe plan. They checked out the gym, and they were really, really happy with everything that I was doing COVID safe wise.
Yeah.
But when they asked me about my staff vaccination status, that was when they said I was in trouble, because they said I'm going to have to close my gym because I have to keep a staff vaccination register. And I said, as far as I know, I don't need a staff vaccination register. And they said, well, it's a requirement. Otherwise, you have to be vaccinated to be out working outside of your home, and you have to keep a register for all of your staff. And so I said, well, I'm not quite sure what to do then, because I'm not closing my gym again.
Yeah.
I'm not closing it for something like this when we've taken every other measure under the sun.
Exactly.
And literally people can't come into my gym unless they have a membership tag and they swipe in. So every single person. And as I said before, like, we have a really healthy community who are very aware. I just had one of my members who came back from Sydney let me know that they caught COVID in Sydney, and they're now self-isolating. Like, this is the sort of community that I'm in. People aren't going to come there and spread disease because, one, they love the gym, and so they don't want to be responsible for having us close again. Right. And two, they're generally just healthy minded. Like, they're a very caring community. And so I had to be there to, and mostly to support my staff, because my staff couldn't be vaccinated due to medical reasons, but their exemption wasn't good enough to meet the actual Australian immune registration exemption needs. And so I was physically told by my doctor that I shouldn't get the vaccine because I fell into a category where I probably wasn't going to get any benefit from it, but they couldn't write me an exemption for it. This was before the mandates all came in, because I didn't meet the criteria. And when I asked my doctor what the criteria was, they literally told me it's an adverse reaction to the first jab. That's what they told me.
No.
I had my daughter sitting with me, and they said, that is the only exemption we can write you. And I said, so you're telling me I'm perfectly healthy, and the only exemption you can give me is if I get the first one and have a heart condition, which I'm trying to avoid by not getting the jab. And my daughter was sitting with me, and they actually physically got their head doctor to come in and escort me and my daughter out of the medical surgery.
Are you serious?
They came in. The doctor I was talking to rang her boss. He came in and told us to get out of the surgery, and we weren't welcome back there. That was me and my 16-year-old daughter.
Gosh, what?
Yeah.
I am absolutely floored. I've just lost all of my questions that I was even going to ask you.
I didn't actually finish though. So then I got on to when the COVID people came, they went to the car, they weren't sure how to deal with me.
Yeah.
And then they waited until after the pandemic bill got passed.
Yes.
They came to see me on the 30th of November, but they waited to send me my fine until the 17th of December after the COVID pandemic bill had passed.
Right.
To give me my infringement. And in the notices, it says that due to the pandemic bill, even though the incident that I was doing hadn't had the pandemic bill come into it, and they gave me $27,000 fine.
So what have you actually been fined for? For opening when you were supposed to be closed, or for having staff that are not vaccinated?
That one, just for not for allowing staff that aren't vaccinated to keep their jobs, including myself.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, so the only way you can avoid getting a shot is to have the shot that makes you sick, so then you don't have to get the shot. And because you're not forcing your staff, coercing your staff to get the shot, you now have a $27,000 fine that they waited so that they could put more money onto it?
No, I think they waited to get more weight into it, because before the pandemic bill, they were just state of emergency powers.
Right.
I'm not quite sure. I'm still getting like advice on how this changes, but as far as I know, it doesn't actually change very much.
Yeah.
Because these are still very much temporary restrictions.
Yeah.
Or what are they called? Is that the word for them? Temporary, whatever they're called, directives, because they only go a month to month now with the pandemic bill. They're not like, as far as I understand it, they're not set in stone laws. They're directions that are part of the pandemic bill. But they waited till after the actual bill was passed in Parliament before they sent me the bill, the fine.
And the whole time this has been going on, politicians and their staff are not mandated to get the jab.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sit there for a moment and let that sit with people. That the people that are fining gym owners, small business people like Steve, who have a family and are actually serving the community with $27,000 worth of fines, are the people that don't even have to put this stuff in their own body nor their staff.
In saying that too, I'm not sure what happened in other states, but when they did mandate it down here, there were a number of politicians down here that weren't allowed into Parliament to do their job because they refused, and they were vaccinated, but they didn't agree with the mandate, so they weren't going to show their vaccine passports that they were required to do. Yeah. So the politicians down here were impacted by it. I'm not sure what happened around the rest of Australia, but I know David Limbrick in particular, and there were a few others that weren't allowed to attend the parliamentary hearings, and they only did it again to come back in to try and fight against these pandemic bills. And that is the crazy thing, is if you're not in Parliament, I don't think you can vote. Can you vote remotely? No. Vote remotely. So they've done that on purpose, very cleverly, to get the good guys out that actually want to serve the people, and just have these snakes pillage our country and destroy us. Okay, so where are we up to now? So whether a fine is delivered with aggression or delivered with a sweet smile, it's still a fine. You've got $27,000 fine now because you've refused to coerce your staff to get a jab. And have you had stuff in writing that explains to you why not coercing your staff is unlawful, given that we have the Biosecurity Act, given that we have the Privacy Act, given that we have the discrimination, all these other laws, and if Commonwealth and state law are at odds, Commonwealth trumps state, and we all know what ScoMo's been saying about coercing staff, and we're not going to do that, and small business owners, and it's all right, and and then the state's doing completely the opposite. So given all this evidence, which people can get in the police pack, by the way, and we are going to flick a copy to
Steve for free, because goodness knows he's already got 27K that he's fighting, so he doesn't need to pay another $100 on top of that. But given all the evidence, like, what have they given you in writing to actually prove that this fine is even lawful in the first place?
Nothing really. I mean, in the infringement, it does explain the supposed directions that are broken. But, and look, like, this is just going to be completely my opinion. But what has shown, if anything, over this Christmas period now, with these cases going through the roof, and all of these restrictions in place, like in every state, like, the whole idea for these mandates supposedly was to stop transmission. That hasn't worked, you know.
No.
Like, it's all of these establishments that are enforcing the vaccine mandates and that sort of stuff, and fully vaccinated people that are now spreading the virus around, you know.
Yes.
And I've taken every other measure to make sure there's no spread. As I said, I had a member let me know that they're not coming back until their quarantine period is over. And they're also going to go a little bit longer, just because the states are different in how they have things. So they're going to use the stricter regimes to make sure they don't get anyone sick. So we've got all these other measures in place to make sure that we are COVID safe. We still apply all of our social distancing and all the other bits and pieces to make sure that we keep all of our members safe. So to me, having a mandate on 3 people, myself and my other staff members, didn't make any sense at all, because like I said, and they haven't really explained it to me, to answer your question. You know, they didn't explain why.
Well, I would say that's probably because there's not a reasonable explanation why. So, okay, so Avi Yemeni has taken up your case, and he's doing what he can to support you.
When I got the fine, I sent it through to Avi Yemeni, and it was a horrible time of year, because it was literally 17th of December, so the week before Christmas. So obviously everyone's pretty much on holidays, and they've given me to the 16th of January to figure out what I want to do. But he has sent it on to his legal team, who will be getting back to me.
Right.
He did communicate with me just the other day saying, look, they have got it. It's just some of them are on holidays and stuff like that.
Sure.
So the full team behind it.
Sure.
I've also had some help from Mac, from the New South Wales Teachers Group. So he's pretty big in New South Wales. He's given me a hand, and he's put me on to one of his legal representative people who've given me some advice and that sort of stuff.
Great.
And there's been a few other people that have given me other stuff too, like on how to respond to the fine or stuff. And so I'm trying to figure out the best course of action here. But and look, it's really, really scary and confusing, I won't lie.
Of course it is. And that's why the small business owners are on the back foot, because you've just had to deal with everything you've had to deal with for the last 21 months. And now they're getting us to roll out their little experiment so that they can put a jab in everybody. Okay, I've got 2 questions for you. Number one, do you really think that we're at 90% in Victoria? Because I don't.
I can't answer that. I honestly can't. I know locally we're in a very conservative community, and I know my local area is very much highly vaccinated. No, I think they announced at the end of mid-November that Wellington, my particular area, was like 95% vax, 12 and up.
Wow.
You know, so whether it's right or not, look, what's frustrating is, and some people don't remember this or how the narrative seems to change, is when they talked about the vaccine before they were available, it was 70%. We need 70% of the community to be vaccinated to have herd immunity. As soon as the vaccines came in, they said 80%. And then that just magically moved to 90%. Now, again, this is just opinion, but if it's 90% and they still want to put in restrictions on everybody like we're seeing at the moment, that's not really showing much comfort in what the vaccine is doing. Sorry.
But what would you know? Because you're just a gym owner. You're not a clever politician. I know that's controversial, but it is just purely opinion. But if we have such a high vaccination rate, surely we should feel comfortable to go back. Surely we should.
Yeah.
And yet now you are now no longer fully vaccinated if you've had 2 jabs. You're now just 2 jabs, and now you have to go and get a booster.
They don't call it a booster in Victoria.
What do they call it?
They just call it your 3rd shot. Yeah,
Marketing.
It's not considered a booster down here. It's you need to go get your 3rd shot. They don't want to call it a booster because it sends a wrong message.
Yeah, it's all about marketing. It's all about marketing. Disgraceful. All right, here's my second question for you. Are you going to roll over and pay the fine, or are you going to fight it?
I'm going to fight it as much as I can, all the way through. I won't be paying it.
Why are you fighting it? Because I know it's not just about the money for you. Because if it was about money, you would go and work in corporate. You wouldn't be a small business owner, because you're never a small business owner just for the money, because it's blood, sweat, and tears.
You wouldn't run a gym if you're in it for the money.
That too.
You do this because you're passionate about helping people.
Yeah.
And that's the reason that's why I've been so vocal the whole way through the last 2 years, because I'm passionate about giving people a different side of the coin and showing people that there's more to this than one answer that the mainstream media shows them. And look, I want to be that voice for other small businesses, because the more of us that actually do this, the more impact we're going to have. Because if everyone just doesn't be vocal about this, it's not going to change for anybody.
Yes.
There's other people that I know. I've been chatting with the guys from Bar Wonder. I've been chatting with the Caledonian. I've been chatting with a lot of these other businesses that have been out there too. And we just need more of us to stand up and say no, because everyone's just saying yes that this is continuing.
Exactly. Mass non-compliance in keeping with the law, because what we're being asked to do is actually unlawful. I have 15 different points on the police pack that explain very, very clearly, very respectfully, very humbly why to roll out what the government is asking small businesses to roll out right now is entirely unlawful, and actually puts you in. I know $27,000 is not great. I completely appreciate that. However, if you were to start to coerce your staff and they were to have an adverse reaction, who does the buck stop with?
Yeah.
It's not very clear.
Apparently New South Wales, I'm not quite sure what Victoria's in, but apparently in New South Wales, the buck stops with the business owner now. Well, the government is now kind of doing a bit of virtue signaling here, there and everywhere, but they did cap it at 5K for a start. So if your medical bills were less than 5K for an adverse reaction, you're not going to get the money anyway, so why bother reporting it? So we don't even know how many adverse reactions have happened, because they might be being underreported. But the point is that they're being very firm that you have to do this, you have to get vaccinated, you can't let people in, you have to see vax passports. Oh, okay, so who's going to pay for that? Well, we don't really know. Okay, so what about, it's because of blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what? That doesn't make any sense. So you are still operating now as a gym? Are you open to the public? Wow. I'm open to my members.
To your members,
need to really clarify that. This is part of our COVID safe stuff. We don't just let people come in casually without having booked. And if they are casual from other areas, they do have to show like health status and that sort of stuff. Only because we don't want to have spread through the gym. We're doing everything else COVID safe.
So good.
So, but members don't have to be vaccinated. Staff don't have to be, but most of my members are, like 99% of them are. Like I explained before, they're in healthcare and the military and these other avenues. So they have done it. Most of my members chose to do it. I don't want to tell anyone not to do it. That's not what I'm here for. I am not a health practitioner, but I'm also never going to discriminate against anybody. Yeah,
so good. So I want to leave people on a bit of a higher note. And Steve and I were speaking briefly before we started as to how you could reach out and support Steve if you wanted to. We're still discussing whether we're going to put a GoFundMe page live or not. So if the decision is made that yes, we're going to do that, that will be in the link in the description, and you can certainly give directly into his legal battle, because he is standing up for the community and he is standing up for small business owners. And once we start to win some precedents, that actually makes things easier for other small business owners. So he is the tip of the spear right now. He absolutely needs his support. If we do have the funds available from the sale of the police pack, then we will be donating some funds to him as well. But it is dependent on how many police packs we do sell. So, okay. So once you are over this COVID hurdle and you've won your case, and everything is starting to get back to better than normal and you're rebuilding, what does a post-COVID world look like for you? Like, why are you fighting so hard now? What is your vision on the other side of all of this?
Well, my goal when I bought the gym was to build a wonderful community of health-minded people. We do kids and teens programs. We do outreach programs to the community. We support local sports teams and that sort of stuff with assisting there. Like, we just want to be that hub of health and fitness locally, you know, so people know, like, that whatever your level, whether you're a beginner or intermediate or an elite level athlete, that we have something to offer to help them on their journey.
Yeah.
And like I said before, I'm not in fitness to make myself millions of dollars. I have a wife and 3 kids. I want to be able to support them. I want to be fit and healthy. I want to be a great example. And I just want to be that health and fitness hub in my community. That's what I bought the gym for to start with. And that's my goal for this year, is just to, fingers crossed, with no more lockdowns and no more hiccups, just to build this community into something special.
So good. So good. Well, I'd love to check back in with you in a few months' time to find out, you know, what happened to Steve from Sale with his community-minded gym. But in the meantime, do you have any tips, tricks, any type of advice that you could give to small business owners who are struggling themselves? Whatever you want to tell them, the world is your oyster. On you go.
Look, in all honesty, you've just got to stick to what you personally believe. Like, you do have to do your own research. Like, you're not going to find it just by watching what you're told to watch. So you do have to look a bit. And I think the biggest thing is just to keep an open mind. I think the biggest problem that happened is we got sent down one path and we got told to follow one path. And there's other doctors out there and other very specialty researchers, doctors, and high-level people of influence who are being silenced. And you've just got to ask questions. You know, not everyone's going to be right. And I think the biggest thing to do is, if someone's telling you that their way is the only way, you should really question that, because as a health professional, I know my way is not the only way. I know there's many routes to better health and better quality of life. And I think everyone just needs to keep that always at the top of their mind. And look, like I said, if you think this is the right choice for you, that's great, but don't discriminate against other people. And the biggest issue right now, I think, is people are at each other. So we're doing what the government is wanting us to do, and we're taking on the brunt of that dissent and that sort of stuff. And we just need to care about each other and support each other. The health decision. And we don't judge people on whether they drink too much or they're overweight or the color of their skin. Like, these are all the same sort of things that we're making a judgment call on at the moment. So we just need to be that voice and that support for everyone in the community, regardless of their choices and their journey.
Oh, so good. Maybe you should run for Parliament at some stage.
I actually thought about that.
You did?
Yeah, I've actually been thinking about it locally, but yeah.
Well, who knows?
Just need to get myself through what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what? I hear this so often. You are now the 6th person that I know in my own circle of people that are planning on getting into politics. So there you go. We need some good, strong people in there. Well, Steve, I would love to catch up with you again to find out what's happening. As I said before, if we do have a GoFundMe agreement, because Steve's still not sure whether he wants to go down that path or not, then the link will be in the description. Please give generously. And I'll put the link for his business down there so that you can reach out and just give some encouraging words, because I'm sure he would love, love, love to hear them. And that's it from me. We will speak again soon. Thank you for tuning into our Fair Go podcast by the people, for the people. And Steve, thanks again.
Thanks, Rebecca. It's been great.
Have you got an inspiring story to tell? Register your business now for your chance to be featured on our Fair Go podcast. Ready to lend a helping hand? That's great. You can chip in through the website. Remember, 100% profit goes directly back into local small business. Together, we can rebuild this great Southland for ourselves and the next generation. Go to fairbusinessaustralia.com.au.